The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. It is Anime Thursdays on the Nerdcast Empire. Great to have you along with us once again. I am Matt in the studio. We're going to be talking anime news this week, some news headlines, and then we're going to get to Summer 2024 anime preview. We've each picked some shows out, and we're going to let you know what we're going to keep an eye on this year, or this season, I should say, for brand new anime and continuing anime as well. Great to have you along with us this week. And joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. It's kind of wild. This is one of the few seasons lately where I feel like I've been keeping up with a few shows. And when I say that, hey, these are shows I might watch coming into summer, there's an odd possibility I will actually watch them. So kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I think that is certainly something that is interesting to see the quality of shows it appears to be. I mean, it's always interesting because obviously these trailers all make all these shows look like they're the next great show, but there are certainly some different takes on some, I don't want to say stale genres, but some genres that are kind of maybe overdone a little bit, but it looks like some of these shows are maybe taking a little spin on that. So I'm kind of curious to see how some of these turn out.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of the hero is really powerless, but then you find out later he isn't. He actually is way more powerful than everybody else. Random nobody fights things in a dungeon and then becomes really awesome. That kind of theme seems to be recurring a lot right now.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at some of the shows coming up, and Chris is joining us in the chat as always, so big thanks to Chris. We got one show that I know Chris is going to be keeping his eye on this season as well. We'll mention that when we get to the second half of this episode. But the first half, we just got a couple of news items we want to start off with, and nothing real heavy as far as anything that needs like significant discussion, but certainly some things that we can discuss. The first one came from CBR.com, the news that 5 major anime piracy sites with 137 million monthly users were targeted in a new U.S. subpoena request. I'm kind of stunned that there are this many users out there on piracy sites even today, even with anime being as easy as it is to come by. But these sites, which appear to be mostly in Tonga, also Mexico, Somalia, add up to 137 million monthly visits, and evidently they're trying to take all these sites down. It's kind of interesting, again, that you see all these piracy sites still kind of going, and they're continuing to make an effort to try to take these down. But I just think they're almost fighting a losing battle at this point, especially if some of these sites end up in countries that maybe aren't as friendly with both the United States and Japan in their efforts to take it down.
Yeah, absolutely. What amazed me about this story is that I've not heard of any of these sites. Like, not that I'm ultra familiar with piracy in general. I don't pirate anime, but I would have expected there to be one where it's like, hey, I've heard someone talk about that site before, but no, that is not the case at all. So when it says, this adds up to 137 million monthly visits, I just wonder, what are the larger sites getting, and what kind of dent is that putting in the industry? And kind of a point I made previously was, how many of these people that are watching this stuff illegally would even consider paying a subscription fee to watch it if piracy wasn't an option, or would they just not watch it at all? I'm really curious.
And obviously, the Japanese are very serious about this. This is really kind of where this comes from, and they're asking their U.S. partners to kind of use the U.S. Justice Department as kind of the strong arm of this operation, but they've passed some new anti-piracy laws. There's even a new one where they're trying to limit some sort of AI translations on manga and anime in Japan, and can fine you if you kind of illegally translate this stuff.
Unless you're the real company using AI to translate.
Correct. I'm hearing an echo over here. I don't know if your sound's up on your computer, but I'm kind of hearing a secondary audio there. But
it sure was.
But we'll see. Chris makes a good point. and I think you kind of already stated this, that I think most of these people are not going to be going to legal sites. Now, what I would love to know is, are these sites anime only, or are they pirating movies? Are they pirating... Because some of them had anime in the name, but my guess is if you're a piracy site, you're probably pirating everything. So, like, how many of these 137 million users were coming for anime, and how many of them were coming for the latest motion picture that's been in the theaters?
You got to assume there are sister sites to all of these that, sure, you could go to kickassanime.mx, or you could go to, latestmovie.mx or whatever, kickasshollywood.mx, something to, I don't know what it would be called, but the point being is that I'm sure there's plenty of others out there.
And again, even the article says it's basically like whack-a-mole, because as soon as you shut these sites down, if you're able to do that, 5 more sites are going to pop up. And again, they're going to be in country. I mean, we've got Somalia, we've got Tonga. There are many other. I mean, Russia is obviously still very much known for piracy sites, and they don't really have a whole lot of, a motivation to take these sites down. Or maybe even in some of these countries' cases, the manpower to take these sites down. They've got lots of other problems they're dealing with currently that don't involve anime. So, Chris brings up another point there. And something we talked about a few weeks ago on this show is, the other issue right now is there are a handful of licenses, especially licenses that Funimation had, that kind of fell through the cracks when that whole merger with Crunchyroll happened. And I would imagine some of those shows are the ones that people are going to try to find. And if they can't find a physical copy, and if they can't find it by legal means, they're going to find it by illegal means. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it, because the torrent sites and the piracy sites are always going to be 2 steps ahead.
Yeah, and it's very similar to the whole game emulation and ROM situation too, where it's, if I want to play a video game that came out 30 years ago, that the company that created it and for the platform that played it are no longer out there, who am I really stealing from? I can't call Nintendo and say, hey, I want to buy that game from you for Super Nintendo that you don't presently have on Switch Online. That's not possible. So at the end of the day, I don't know.
Yeah, what the answer is, I'm not sure. It just was interesting that you're continuing to see these sites being taken down, and I'm sure that even the U.S. partners probably, I don't want to say they're not concerned about it, because they certainly are, but it's something. They just probably have other problems they're trying to deal with, but at the same time, you got to keep the Japanese licensors happy. So some of this is, hey, we're going to do this because we want to make sure we keep getting our anime from you guys, but we're not going to go overboard and try to push it because we have other things we have to deal with.
I think at the very least they have to do things like this to potentially scare people into maybe going about it the legitimate way. You're never going to win the battle, but it's if you can contain it, that's good enough, I suppose.
Well, I always think of like the torrent sites. Like, it wasn't so much necessarily getting the original site that was hosting it. It was getting all the people that were sharing it alongside. If you can cut out the middleman, so to speak, you can kind of cut the snake off at the middle.
It was Lars Ulrich and his printed list of Napster users from his dot matrix printer that he was walking around with.
Which is hilarious, because that always just reminds me of the Jay and Silent Bob movie when they're going door to door.
The movie poopshoot.com reviews.
It feels very much like the same thing.
Yeah.
But, interesting. We'll just keep an eye on that story. I'm sure it's something that's going to come up pretty constantly as piracy continues to be a hot topic in both anime and video games right now. A couple of smaller news items. The announcement on Wednesday, and this is courtesy of Anime News Network, that Mobile Fighter G Gundam is getting a new serialized scenario story that will debut on the anime's official website on January the 5th. It's going to be a text story. It does not state the exact format, but we've seen the success that the Gundam Seed movie recently had, and you kind of brought up a good point that maybe it's a time where they're going to continue to test the waters on these non-Universal Century stories that people still love. G Gundam, Gundam Wing, Gundam Seed, they're still incredibly popular, they're out there now where people can stream them or they can buy physical copies. So I guess it wouldn't surprise me to maybe we get a new G Gundam anime or anime movie somewhere down the line.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. And I think, too, going back to like the 90s, you had Wing that was definitely successful over here. I wonder how much success it had compared to some of the Gundam that's released now. I mean, it's entirely possible that even it pales in comparison to the success that something like an Iron-Blooded Orphans or Witch from Mercury saw, or the Gundam Seed movie. And, you know, if that's the case, then any way you can revive something like a G Gundam or After War Gundam X or Turn A Gundam, things that you know didn't really make as much of a splash over here, give it a shot, man.
Yeah, I think anytime you can kind of have a modern take on these shows that are looking a little bit dated, I think why not? And see if you can tap a market, and who knows, maybe the Gundam Seed movie could lead to new seasons of shows. Maybe the same thing's true for G Gundam. I don't know, but
to Chris's point, I definitely think if for nothing else, for the sake of diversity, we need to have a G Gundam side story with the Tequila Gundam being the main character. I think the world's ready for that.
It'll be interesting to see how that's handled in the new G Gundam. Certainly could be interesting.
Sombrero will be gone. It'll have some sort of like Dia de los Muertos paint scheme that just seems more of a tribute to the culture as opposed to. It's probably not going to be called Tequila Gundam.
Probably not.
You know,
we'll see. But yeah, that's
it'll be Seto Miedo Gundam or something like that.
Good luck getting that trademark through. But yeah, so it's good news for G Gundam fans. I think anytime there's new content being made, even if it's not animated, I think there's some hope that maybe there'll be a new animated feature at some point. Speaking of things getting an update because they look dated, Rumiko Takahashi, of course, she just had Urusei Yatsura's retelling the new series of that, which by all accounts seemed to have done pretty well. Now we're getting news that Ranma half or Ranma 1/2. I don't know how you actually pronounce that in English. I've always said 1/2, but I hear a lot of people just say Ranma half. But that is getting a reboot as well. More information is going to be coming out on that in July. So if you're a fan of the original series, or if you're just a Rumiko Takahashi fan, this is another one of her series that's getting the remake in the modern form and the HD and all that stuff. Again, it's her stuff's classic, and I've never gone back and watched Ranma because it looks even more so for some reason than Urusei Yatsura, which is clearly more dated.
Yeah.
But for some reason, something about Ranma just time-wise wasn't as kind to it for some reason.
It's kind of wild that it's taken them this long to get around to both of these shows, really, because when you consider we're definitely not young. But my introduction to Takahashi was Inuyasha, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. There has to be a fairly large fan base who that was how they found out about her and her work. And even when I looked at those shows, I'm like, they just kind of look old. I don't really, and that's coming from someone I watched Mobile Suit Gundam. Mm-hmm. It's like I'm not totally averse to watching old titles, but it just kind of seems like a no-brainer that they would have gone back and said, hey, let's update these and get them out to people.
What's interesting, of course, with Inuyasha is we got the spin-off series, Yashahime, which continued sort of the Inuyasha storyline. But I'm curious if Ranma does well, like, do we get a full reboot of the original Inuyasha in an HD format as well? Like, that series would print more money if you do that over again and put it all together.
They could probably do like a Kai version of that where they cut it down to like 70 episodes or something to that effect, and it would be fine. Not that it felt overly fillery, but, they could still do it.
Yeah, I would think that would make it more palatable, and I would think that would be a show that Toonami would be very interested in airing. For sure. So if you're a fan of Ranma, if you're a fan of Rumiko Takahashi, really exciting news. I think we'll find out more. My guess is we're probably looking at sometime in early 2025 before that actually comes out, but we'll certainly keep you updated as that news continues. We're live on Twitch as we are pretty much every Thursday night. If you're listening on the podcast version, we're going to step aside for a break. When we come back, we're talking Summer Anime 2024. We're going to give you the scoop on all the shows you need to check out this summer. That'll be coming up on the other side of this timeout here on the Nerdcast Empire. Back on the Nerdcast Empire, live on Twitch. Next Thursday, we will not be with you. It is the 4th of July, U.S. Independence Day, so we will be taking next Thursday off. So no Anime Thursdays next week. We'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode of Anime Thursdays. We will be with you coming up this Sunday as we will have another episode of Music Weekly. I believe we're into June 14th, and from what I've seen so far, it's a nice rebound week. Last week was kind of thin a little bit, but I feel like we've got a really good selection of music coming up this week.
Yeah, good variety of things. Not all wheelhouse stuff, but definitely quality.
There's definitely some variety for sure, and quality variety. So yeah, check that out. Coming up Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, we'll be back with you for another episode of Music Weekly. Of course, don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. We've got our store there. You can support us that way. You can listen to all the other previous podcasts, all that good stuff. Really good stuff on our website. Check it out. We are up to episode 73 of this podcast, so it continues to roll along. And then the following weekend, we're going to have at least one extra podcast involving WWE Money in the Bank. We'll have a recap of that. Be interesting to see how that kind of shakes out. We may or may not also do an NXT one that week, or we may wait and do it later in the week after NXT television airs Tuesday or something. We'll let you know on the podcast whether we're going to be doing 3 podcasts that weekend or just 2 podcasts, so stay tuned for that. Let's get to our summer anime 2024. A lot of good shows coming up. Some continuing shows, some new shows that certainly seem to have some promise or potentially have some people working on the show that kind of makes you think, okay, this might be good. I know Chris is in the chat, so I want to give this show a shout out before we get to our continuing shows. One I know he's going to be excited about, and my understanding is this is going to be airing worldwide on Netflix. It is Kinnikuman Kanpeki Chojin Shisohen, which is a new Kinnikuman series to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the original TV anime. It's adapting the perfect origin arc from the manga, and it includes episode 0, which doesn't mean anything to me, but might mean something to Chris. But I know he's going to be excited about that. Looks like
episode 0 is some sort of recap or something, right? I don't know if they're recapping, but that's usually how that goes.
I have to assume if it's continuing on from the original manga, that maybe episode 0 is a good way to get everybody up to speed if you did not watch it.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because I just watched Garnt's video recapping the summer season, but he mentioned, the fact that he has fond memories of the show.
Ultimate Muscle
watching the 4Kids dub. He's like, it must have been good, so he was going to give it a shot. So, really good cast, big names, no surprise. Mamoru Miyano, Samire Uesaka, Daisuke Ono. Big modern voice acting cast for this one. So, no surprise. It's going to have a big budget. It's going to be a big deal. So, definitely check that out worldwide on Netflix coming up. And Chris is certainly excited and will probably be telling everybody he knows about it. We'll have to, hopefully, once his work subsides, we'll be able to get him on and maybe do a little preview of that.
It's just going to be sad when more people watch it than watch Dynamite.
That's not even hard at this point, I don't think. But yeah, should be interesting. So I know Chris will be excited about that one. So we each have a series that we're continuing in this summer season. So I'll let you go first for continuing series that certainly interested in continuing on with.
Yeah, I don't even know for sure what all is continuing of what I'm currently watching. I found the resources to be lacking as far as telling me, hey, this is going to keep going after the spring season. One that I'm fairly certain that is continuing is season 3 of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Show's still weirdly more interesting than it should be given the premise. Kind of excited to see where they're going with that. I'm not quite finished with this first part of season 3. Just waiting on the dub, I believe. But yeah, it's a great show. I'm shocked, but yeah, I truly enjoy it.
Yes, that'll be coming up, continuing on Crunchyroll, right, for that one?
Yes.
So that's a Crunchyroll series. If you want to catch up on that, you probably ought to go back to the first season first, but if you have been keeping up, you're probably already well aware that's going to continue on into this season. I only have one, as far as I know, continuing show. Of course, I've been so bad about keeping up with shows this season that it's possible something I'm watching this season is actually rolling into next season. But the one I know for sure that I've had on my calendar for a while is the second season of Oshinoko. That's still one of the best modern shows, first season that I've watched. 8.64 on my anime list for season 1. Can't read too much of the description without giving away spoilers of season 1, but I think the first line kind of sums it up. It's like Aqua's desire for revenge takes center stage as he navigates the dark underbelly of the entertainment world alongside his twin sister Ruby. If you want to read the rest of that, which includes some spoilers from season 1, you can do that on Analyst, who had a really nice description written up. It'll be on High Dive and Hulu. So really interesting to see that Hulu's kind of picked this up. But really excited for this. Starts on the 3rd, I believe, so that is certainly one of the things on my list to do next week. But definitely encourage people to check that one out. It was really, really good. And it will continue on next week in season 2. Chris mentioning he's almost done with Naruto. He's been watching that, so he's continuing on with Shippuden. Of course, so much Naruto out there, certainly to get through for sure. But you've got a pretty lengthy list of new shows. Kind of what stands out to you from this new season that you maybe wanted to check out?
Stands out might be a strong word. It was really kind of anything that I looked at and said, hey, that might be interesting. I don't know if I'll watch it, but I'll consider it. You know me, I tend to veer toward the shows with the more ridiculous titles. I don't know why. It's just kind of a gimmick at this point. But one of the first ones that stuck out to me was Failure Frame. I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells. It's another isekai. Hero gets sent to this world, but apparently is useless and a really low rank, so he gets sent down to this dungeon where he learns that his powers are just abnormal. They're not useless, but could possibly even be really powerful. It doesn't sound like anything too revolutionary or groundbreaking, but just kind of a fun show, and I think I'll have to give it a shot.
It's definitely right up your alley. That sounds like a title of a show that you would watch for sure. And there's quite a few light novel shows this season, and I feel like we're getting around to having to take another light novel quiz of what's actually a real title and what's not, because some of these are getting more and more outrageous every season.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess, what else do you have on your list?
There was another one. I'm still not sure about the translation of the title on this, because my anime list has it listed one way, but then has an alternate title that's really similar but different. The title they have listed is Why Does Nobody Remember Me in This World? But the synonym title is Why Nobody Remembers My World. So I don't...
Those are different.
Yeah, those mean very different things. That one sounds pretty wild, too. Basically, in this world, humanity wins a battle against all these other races of monsters and demons to kind of reign supreme over the world. And out of nowhere, the main character, I think, kind of causes that whole situation to be undone and rewritten, and he ends up in a world where basically nobody remembers him. The legendary hero that existed that helped the humans take over doesn't exist either, and as such the humans lose the war, but the main character just so happens to inherit the hero's abilities in this new world. So yeah, again, probably not anything too new, but it looked entertaining.
I'm amazed that we can continue to come up with these ideas for these types of shows. I mean, obviously, there must be so many people writing light novels in Japan that it's just they have this giant catalog of shows to pick from that when they want to actually animate something, because they all kind of have, I don't want to say they have similar gimmicks, but it's all kind of the same thing, just slightly different. It's amazing.
It's almost like there's a template book out there that they follow, and it starts with like, okay, so the main character, does he go to another world or does the other world come to him? Because now there are shows kind of like Solo Leveling where it's like they take place in the real world, but the monsters come from another world, not the hero getting sent to another world. You had one of the shows from the previous season I was watching. The level 2 cheat skill, whatever that one was, where the hero got sent to another world, but it kind of seemed exactly like his original world. So there's all these weird little variables you can tweak to kind of make it somewhat original, even if it's all in the end the same show.
And I just wonder, at what point do we run out of ideas for these shows? At what point is it just easy money at this point that they just know it's going to do a certain amount of sales if you just do any kind of isekai show? And so they're like, okay, we can live with that. We're just going to spit another one out. And
I mean, probably. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be isekai shows. It's like you look at one of the shows this summer, Wisteria, Wand and Sword. It's like you had Black Clover, which was about a kid who wanted to be the Wizard King but couldn't use magic, and now he trains his body and he has this really awesome sword. And then not long after that, you had Marshall, who was like another character who I don't think can use magic, but still thrives despite that. And here you are with Wisteria, where the characters look like members of the Black Bulls from Black Clover. The main character, Will Surfort, he wants to be the Wizard King or whatever he wants to be, has no magic ability. He's in this magic academy where he has to fight monsters to earn credits, and evidently he has a professor that picks on him. But, I mean, cloaks look like the Black Bulls. He has this ridiculously giant sword. You don't even have to change a lot. You just have to change a little bit, and there you go. You have another show.
This feels like somebody's already memed this as we've got Black Clover at home.
Yeah.
And it's this show instead. But again, Black Clover was so successful, and obviously, we'll continue on at some point. I kind of get it. I kind of understand why. Like, oh, this works, so let's tweak this. I mean, there's 18 CSI shows and NCIS. Yeah. It's like, oh, that worked once.
People will eat that stuff up. It doesn't matter how derivative it is.
Yeah, I get it. So I can't blame him for that. But when Garnt made that comment about him, just like this guy definitely looks like he's straight out of Black Clover. It's like, oh yeah, that does kind of seem that way. But at the same time, if you do it well, people won't care. Like they'll still watch it. So.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, interesting stuff.
Let's see, what else do we have? Quality assurance in another world.
that hits a little too close to home,
yeah,
right?
I mean, me, myself, in my daily life being a quality analyst, I figured this is obviously the story about me getting sent to another world where I have to look at insurance policies or something. I don't the quality assurance part, I guess I kind of get, but I don't know. It almost seems more like dude is trying to see what's wrong with the world so he can fix it. Kind of the synopsis I got is you have this girl, this little village girl who works at an inn. She's out picking or like getting firewood or something and runs into this dragon who aren't supposed to be anywhere near the villages. They live up in the mountains. After that happens, she meets Haga, who's this scholar and a part of this society called the Seekers, who run around and assess the different maladies that plague the world. So I guess that's the QA aspect. They're trying to find things that need to be corrected. And according to my anime list, both characters have some kind of secrets that could threaten each other's existence. So I don't know. The anime style is a little different on this one. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, but it at least seems like they're teasing that there might be more to it than just, dragons and QA.
When you talk about correcting, it made me think of Corrector Yui.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that had anything to do with that sort of thing where she's just going through and fixing things
She's
in the
just
world.
an auditor.
Yeah, basically. I don't know if those are related at all, but it makes you wonder if this isn't some
It'd be
sort
great, and people just hate anytime she comes around. Like, my God, why?
Yeah, that's very true.
Like Ernst and Young, the anime.
I'm shocked that doesn't exist, to be honest.
It will.
with you.
Just wait.
I mean, McDonald's is making anime commercials. Why not? Or, I think that's just the next step. But
yeah.
what else you got for us? Anything?
Oh man, I think I got a couple more. Nothing that deserves a lot of time, probably. But Nobody's Way Up to an Exploration Hero. LV is what my anime list calls it. I don't know what that means. Let's see. Synonym titles. We have Heroic Exploration Tale starting from Mob, the story of an exploration hero who has worked his way up from common people.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Typical high school kid who's just kind of, low tier, I suppose. Spends his day hunting slimes in dungeons. He stumbles into a golden slime, defeats it and receives an item that summons mythical beings because that's what happens.
Sure.
He uses it to summon the stunning warrior maiden, and now this gives him the ability to be Shaman King or something. No, now he has a chance to actually kind of make something of his life, I guess, and impress the girl at school that he's interested in. So, again, probably not something you're going to remember 6 months later, but could be a fun show.
I've watched a ton of shows that probably are very forgettable, and I enjoyed them at the time. It's just like, there's nothing that even calls for another season of this. Like, it's done. It had its moment, and now we're just going to move on to something else, and this sounds very similar to that.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, it kind of goes back to the whole, this isn't a series where they don't go to another world, but the other world comes to them. There are these dungeons that they explore with slimes, and I assume any other kind of monster, so a little different than your typical fantasy story, maybe.
Sure.
Let's see. How many more do I have at this point?
I feel bad because I only have 3 other ones to talk about, so...
Well, I can cut it here. They're just kind of really quickly. The Elusive Samurai looked pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Period piece. I guess I could go into it further.
Go right ahead.
8-year-old Tokiyuki Hojo, the next successor of the Kamakura shogunate. He's a boy lacking talent in everything besides hide and seek. One day, his life is turned upside down when Takauji Ashikaga brutally seizes power from the Kamakuras, ending their reign. Rescued by a self-proclaimed prophet, Tokiyuki manages to escape with his life, and now he must evade those trying to kill him while recruiting comrades who can help him restore his shogunate to its former glory. Any kind of period piece like that, like this, during like the shogunate times, I'm going to be interested in, so hopefully it delivers.
Yeah, those shows are almost always at least interesting, so kind of curious to see if that one ends up being a good one.
Yeah, and I think that we can call it there. That is quite a few shows that I may or may not get around to.
I'll be impressed if you get to even like half of those. Like,
I got a pretty good rotation right now, so we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. But there's Mike's choices for summer 2024. I've only got 3 to talk about, and certainly. I hope I can get to all 3 of these in addition to Oshinoko coming up. But the first one is Mayonaka Punch. It is an anime about YouTubers. Kind of what drew my attention to it was the fact that it was your boy Komei's director, Shu Honma, who's directing this one. It'll air on Crunchyroll. The description from Analyst says, Masaki, the now former member of the popular NewTuber group Harakiri Sisters, after a career setback, a.k.a. getting fired unexpectedly via a live stream, she joins forces with Live, a partner with superhuman abilities. Together, they aim to create sensational content and reach 1 million subscribers. Will they reach their content dreams or be hit with a block button? I watch so many YouTubers and Twitch streamers now, like a show about a YouTuber is probably going to be entertaining, I'm guessing. So there's also a VTuber show, which I did not list here, and watching enough VTubers that's probably going to be decent as well, but I kind of cut it off at 3, so that didn't quite make the cut. But again, sometimes you just hear a show's the people that are working on it, and it's like, okay, like if Komei's director's working on it, I know he did some work for Spy Family as well. Clearly, that guy knows what he's doing, so I'm hoping this turns out to be a good one. Another one this is one you actually kind of pointed out because I did not know this was coming, but then I saw the second trailer of it today. Is a show called Shoshimin series. It's the same writer as Hyoka, Hanobu Yonezawa. That'll be airing on Crunchyroll. It kind of sounds like it could be like alternative world Hyoka, like it's sort of similar story going on, centering on Jogoro Kobato, who wishes to live a quiet and ordinary life after a painful experience. He and Yuki Osanai form a mutually beneficial relationship, as Yuki also wants the same thing. They start high school as classmates with a plan to spend their peaceful days as ordinary people, but unfortunately they keep getting wrapped up in mysteries and disasters as they happen one after another. One thing's for sure, like, he wrote a masterpiece in Hyoka as far as being able to write a mystery anime and make it intriguing all the way through. So that gives me a lot of hope that this is going to be something very similar and we're going to get the same sort of dynamic there. And you've got clearly main characters who are not all with it. There's clearly something going on there as far as them wanting to be ordinary and not knowing how to be ordinary. So sounds like it could be pretty interesting. The last one that got my attention and kind of got my attention for a ridiculous reason first, but it does look like it's going to be pretty funny, is My Dear Friend Nokotan. It just looks like your typical comedy classroom type show where just nonsense happens. Nichijou was a show I couldn't think of off the air, but very much reminds me of that, where you have just these ridiculous main characters. It'll air on Crunchyroll. The description kind of sums up some of the ridiculousness. It says, no one knows Toriko used to be a delinquent. All of her classmates only know her as the perfect student, but everything changes when Nokotan, a transfer student with antlers, enters her life. Antlers aren't the only thing strange about Nokotan. Her deer nose can sniff out Toriko's secret past, whether it's at school or the zoo. Chaos follows this doe-eyed girl every step. Toriko has so many questions. Is Nokotan a deer, a girl, or something in between? I mean, the trailer for this, if you haven't seen it, is totally ridiculous with explosions and just lots of comedy bits. It looks like it's going to be really funny. It's got a really big cast. And the video I'm going to post in the chat, so if for those who have not suffered this fate like I did probably a month ago, is a clip from the opening video that the anime studio actually came up with. And it is them singing the title of the song over and over again, Shiko Noko 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 Koshtan. And this girl's just dancing, and this deer's just staring at her, and it's a 1 hour video of this over and over again. It became the brain rot song of the month of June. It was everywhere. It's been memed to death. It's got 5.2 million views on YouTube. So clearly the people who made this anime knew what they were doing with this gag anime to come up with this gag video that went viral and has probably gotten people more interested in this anime that might have just looked like just your run-of-the-mill school anime instead. And it's a pretty clever piece of guerrilla marketing that I think is probably going to... Because Crunchyroll just announced they had this show about a week ago. I don't know if maybe they were just late in announcing it or if they just saw the buzz. Like, well, somebody better license this show. So I'm kind of interested to see how that one turns out because it looks like it'd be a lot of fun. And this, like I said, this song is just totally ridiculous.
Yeah, that's tremendous marketing. And I'm proud to say that until I watched Garnt's video earlier, I'd never heard the song.
I love the fact his chat was just spamming it over and over and over again. And of course, if you haven't watched Garnt's video, I should probably find that and link it because Garnt does a great job. Obviously, he has
questionable taste, but
he does. But that's part of the appeal, I think, of his videos is that his taste is trash taste after all. So, but as he's reading these descriptions, they're scrolling on the screen. Well, when he's reading the description of this one, it's literally just Shiko Noko 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 Koshtantan over and over again in Japanese, just because that's kind of what everybody's going to know about this show. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun show, I think, and I think they've done well to get people interested in it, even if it's for brain rot reasons. So I give them a lot of credit for that, but. Anything stand out from anything I mentioned there?
I still need to get around to Oshinoko Season 1. That clearly is an important show in the world, so I definitely want to check that out. Otherwise, I think I might have my hands full with the 20 shows that I listed that I may or may not actually watch.
Yeah, you definitely have quite the list. So,
and I have stuff that currently, and I was thinking, will I even be able to get around to these other shows? But, I just finished one show or a season of a show the other day, the Banished Former Hero Lives As He Pleases.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But on top of that, I have, according to my anime list, which I think is up to date and accurate, I have 5 other shows that I'm currently watching. Chilling in Another World with level 2 super cheat powers, Kaiju number 8, Solo Leveling, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Season 3, and Windbreaker. So I'm definitely, I'm not killing it, but I'm keeping up with a few things at the very least.
Yeah, you're doing better than I'm doing. I've got, I still need to get back to a couple of shows I've mentioned on here. Layback Camp Season 3, Nijion, I need to still watch Sound Euphonium Season 3 as it's getting ready to wrap up. And I'm sure there's others just along the way that I've missed out on that I need to go back to. But yeah, here's another handful of shows. And the only one I know that I'll be watching day one is Oshinoko Season 2. As soon as High Dive puts up that episode. So definitely looking forward to that. Any final thoughts on our Anime Thursdays?
No, not really. I think it's kind of like the music episodes when you go through these seasonal shows to see what's interesting, and this feels like a season where there's a lot of stuff that might be good, but I'm not super thrilled about any one of them. So we'll see how it goes.
Could be the season for the hidden gem. Maybe something you didn't think would be all that great, but turns out to be a good one. So,
yeah.
We'll find out. Let us know in the comments, certainly on our YouTube VOD, or just message us. Let us know what you're going to be checking out this summer, and maybe something we need to check out that we didn't get a chance to preview. So definitely let us know. A lot of good stuff out there, and excited for another season of anime, which will get started next week, believe it or not, as July gets started next week, which I am definitely not ready for. That is going to wrap up this edition of the Nerdcast Empire. Anime Thursdays is in the books once again. Just a reminder, we won't be back next Thursday again with Independence Day. We'll be taking next Thursday off. Hopefully you enjoy. We got plenty of backlog podcasts if you want to tune in and need to get your fix of the Nerdcast Empire. We got a lot of episodes. Of course, coming up this Sunday, we've got another episode of Music Weekly. We'll be checking out the music from June the 14th. Really good stuff on there, so I'm really excited for that. We've also got some more wrestling podcasts coming down the pike. WWE Money in the Bank coming up a week from Saturday, so we'll have a review of that coming up as well. Big thanks to Stoveleg Media for their continued support of our podcast. And again, we'll be back on Sunday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, East Coast U.S. time, for another episode of Music Weekly. Looking forward to that. Big thanks to Mike for joining me once again. Big thanks to Chris for holding down the chat for us, and for everybody who tuned in to listen to this week's episode of Anime Thursdays. And until next time, coming up on Sunday, this is Matt saying so long. Don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.